Hello YouTube, welcome back to Super Lorcana World. This is your one-stop shop for everything Lorcana. We have been cooking here at the lab, trying to come up with some amazing deck profiles. And these are, deck profiles and in combinations that we've already seen plenty of times, and more tournaments are happening. It's a really good time. I recently won a Lorcana Locals with this particular deck profile. So I thought, I would jump in front of the camera and talk about it. This is Emerald, Amber, Aggro, the deck. If you guys enjoy this deck, let me know what you think in the comment section, and please like and subscribe. We are so close to 2,000 subscribers. I can't wait to get there. So I think we'll go ahead and start with the Amber part of it, and we'll kick it off with 4 copies of Lilo. The Lilo here being your 1/1/1 for 2 is a incredible asset to Aggro, and you love to see her turn 1. As a substitute, we also play 4 copies of Stitch. Now, this serves as a double purpose, because we all know how big and scary the Shift Stitch is, with its ability to draw lots of cards. We don't play it, but the opponent doesn't know that. It might bait out removal. But on top of that, he also helps with your aggro matchups. Like this card just counters well into Lilo, and that's pretty good. Now, hopefully, if you have the turn 1 Lilo, you do have the turn 2 Simba to follow it up. It has Bodyguard, and it can play itself exerted, and then it can only be attacked. Nothing else can be attacked. And 2/3 is big enough to survive these pesky 2/2s and keep your Lilo alive for a little bit longer, to keep getting that quick lore. And that's the whole point of it, right? So it's there for that Bodyguard ability to make sure your other individuals that can quest for big numbers can continue to do so. Now, on the 3 drops, only 2 of them, just 2 copies of Just in Time, lets you play a character cost with 5 or less for free. I wonder what the ideal target is for that card. We'll get to that soon enough, I assure you. That's it for 3 drops. On to the 4 drops. We are playing 4 copies of not a character, but You Have Forgotten Me. Each opponent chooses and discards 2 cards. As you get later into the game, some of these decks that don't have a lot of draw power, they might only have a couple cards in hand. If you can just force them to ditch those last 2 cards in their hand, all of a sudden they're top decking. And sure, it's still possible for the opponent to win through that, but it becomes harder. So you save this card, you save a well-timed one for your opponent, and then you just force them to get rid of some cards. And then it puts them in an incredibly hard situation to win the game. I've won plenty of games like that. Now, we do play 2 copies of Rapunzel. Some of our characters, more so on the Emerald side, have big, juicy defense values, and they might rack up some damage here and there. So Rapunzel can come in and clean off that damage and net you some cards for doing so. Rapunzel is just crazy powerful, incredible card. Card's pretty good. And we play 2 copies of this Hades. This ability returns a character card from your discard to your hand. They are essentially meant to loop each other. Very rarely do you take something else unless it's going to win you the game. It just makes it so if one gets removed, you replace it and you keep replacing it over and over and over again. It makes it very, very hard for your opponent to deal with, because you always have a 3/2 on board, and that has value. It does. The last Amber card in this deck, 2 copies of the really big Stitch. This thing is a 7-drop inkable 4/8 that quests for 2. And when you play this character, if you have 2 or more other characters in play, you may draw 2 cards. Now, I'm going to be real with you. There are games where you don't even get to turn 7. You just kind of win. And that's very good. That's the whole point of this deck. But, if you land that turn 7, you're drawing some cards. And that's a pretty powerful effect, honestly. And he's there. If you don't need him, you ink him. It's not really a big deal. He's just there, I think he's more of a win more, but the 4/8 matters when dealing with certain bigger threats in the format. So I think it's fine as a 2 of. If you wanted to replace it with something else, you probably could. I've only resolved this card a handful of times, because again, usually if things are going well, you're winning before you could even legally drop this card. Turn 6 usually. So that'll do it for the Amber cards. All in all, it's just your generic Aggro Amber package without the Stitch. If you were playing the Adoring Fan Stitch, you'd be playing a lot more 1-drops and 2-drops, but we're not. So we're playing good value cards in the Amber spot and your bread and butter Amber aggressive staples. Now we'll move on to the Emerald part, and we'll start off with 4 copies of the Duke of Wesselton. It's another 1-drop 2/2 for 1 lore that helps you in your aggro mirror matches. The mirror match can get pretty dicey, so I wanted to make sure I had the 4 Stitch and the 4 Duke. I do think it's incredibly important, and I got nothing else to say to that. Then we have 4 copies of Flynn Rider in our 2-drop spot. This is a 1/2 that quests for 2, and if it's challenged, the opponent has to discard a card. Can combo nicely with the You've Forgotten Me. You know, you might turn 3 quest that. Your opponent might attack it, turn 3, discard a card, and then you come in turn 4 and discard 2 cards. It is a pretty powerful situation to put the opponent in. And it's hard. It's annoying. They want to get rid of it because it quests for 2. So it puts your opponent in a tricky spot. That is for certain. I am playing 2 copies of Cruella de Vil. I actually really like this card. I think a lot of people don't, and people don't really realize how good this card is. So it's a 2 that can be inked, by the way. 1/3 for 1 lore, and when it's challenged and banished, you may return a character to their player's hand. You can return anything you want. So this card has the ability to return things that are damaged to your hand. It can bounce an annoying thing to your opponent's hand. It could bounce a tempo piece to their hand. It could bounce a really important card to your hand, something that you can use later. Something like, you know, a John Silver, that when you play it, it makes something get reckless and it can't quest. Like, Cruella has a whole world of applications, and she doesn't come up too often, I will tell you. She doesn't really fit the aggro theme so well, but that random interaction, that intricate bit of control that she offers, makes her an asset in this deck. I like her as a 2 of. Sometimes you ink her away and it's fine, and that's her best purpose. But sometimes you actually get value off the effect, and that's really good. Now onto the 3 drops. We're playing 4 copies of Cheshire Cat. When this is challenged and banished, it banishes the challenging character. It's something they'll want to get rid of with removal, because otherwise they lose a big body. It's a 0/3 and a quest for 2. So they're going to want to get rid of it as soon as possible. They really are. Then we're doing 4 copies of Mother Knows Best. Mother Knows Best returns a chosen character to the player's hand. It's a 3-drop. It can't be inked, but it can be sung. So if you have a 3-cost character that you just don't really feel like questing with, or you want to get some value out of it with the Mother Knows Best, bounce a big guy to hand. It could be really annoying. It could allow you to win the game. That's what the card is there for. You shouldn't spam it on random low-level nonsense. You should time it for a perfectly, planned turn. Like you bounce at you quest for a whole lot, and then you bounce something to hand, something that might have been able to respond to the opponent questing a lot, and all of a sudden now they're caught with their pants down and you win the game next turn. That's what Mother Knows Best is for. I usually use this card turn 4, turn 5 to win on turn 6. Like, that's just kind of how the card works. That's how you should use it, anyway. And then we have 3 copies of Jasper. Jasper, again, isn't super aggressive on the lore counting, but when this character quests, you do pick an opposing character, and it can't quest. So it helps you in the mirror match get rid of things, unfortunately, not get rid of them, but prevents certain things from questing, right? Mad Hatters can't quest, Hans can't quest, any other annoying 3 questing cards can't quest. Doesn't work on Cusco because Cusco has Ward, but it works on everything else. I think that's an important thing as well. Even something as John Silver. John Silver is seeing more and more play nowadays. John Silver can't quest. That means John Silver is basically useless. You know what I mean? They can't give things reckless if it can't quest after you play it. So Jasper, all in all, pretty powerful ability. And it's fine with 3 of. Nothing too crazy. And if you don't like it, you can ink it. And that's quite alright. And then we're on 3 copies of Hans. I was playing 4 copies of this card, and I get it. I really, really do. Like, it's a 3/3 that quests for 3, and it's a 4-drop. It's your earliest drop that can quest for 3. The problem is it dies to literally anyone breathing. And that I don't like that in a card. At least the other guys that can quest for 3, they have abilities that make them pretty scary. Hans is just a 4-drop that quests for 3 with very, very pitiful stats. Not for me personally as a 4 of, but turn forward is a good drop. I won't deny that. And it's okay if you have the Bodyguard Simba as well. But a 4 of, I've tried it, I didn't like it. But, that could just be prejudiced. I'm sure most people play 4. Some people could be in the comments like, you gotta play 4 Hans, it's mandatory, you're stupid! They might do that. But to them, it's whatever. At the end of the day, these are personal preference, right? Just because I won a locals with it is not the be-all, end-all. Trust me on that. On to the 5 drops. I don't think anyone saw this one coming. 4 copies of Cusco, has Ward, quest for 3, it's a 2/4, and when it's challenge and banish, it banishes a challenger character. This is your ideal drop with the just in time. If you can drop this on turn 3, you are in such a good position, it's crazy. Cusco is insane. It is probably the best card in the deck. You know, maybe next to Rapunzel. Don't forget, if Cusco gets damage, Rapunzel can clean it up. It's pretty powerful, if you ask me. Move on to the next one, which are 4 copies of Mad Hatter. It's a 2/4 again, that quests for 3. It can be inked as opposed to Cusco. Doesn't got a ward, but when this character is challenged, you may draw a card. It's usually drawing you 1 card or 2 cards, or they waste removal on it, and like that's just kind of whatever. It gets you a lot of value, gives you draw power, which is kind of lacking in this deck. It's the only like super big disadvantage part of this deck. There isn't a lot of draw power. You kind of have to hope that you just get there with your gas and you don't run out of gas. Because you know, have you ever run out of gas on like a highway? It's a pretty unfortunate situation, and that's what this deck is all about. You try to get to the end of the destination before you run out of gas. And by run out of gas, I mean a turn 7 be prepared. That's really the scariest thing out of all. So there is that. And then lastly, we play 4 copies of John Silver. John Silver here, he quests for 2. He's a 5/5. You play it for 6, and it can be inked. When you play it and when you quest with it, something gains Reckless. A Reckless character has to challenge if able, and cannot quest that turn. A really, really annoying card, especially in an aggro type, and it's in a similar enough mirror match where, you know, they really might want to quest with something, but they can't. Like a Mad Hatter. Imagine using John Silver on Mad Hatter. Laughable. Mad Hatter can't touch John Silver, he'll die. And then you heal it with Rapunzel next turn, and you're laughing. Laughing you're doing. Anyway, John Silver, you know, again, there are games where you get to turn 6, and you win that turn. So you might never ever use John Silver, you might just ink it. But, you know, against sometimes it doesn't go as fast, and against slower decks, John Silver can be a really big pain in the butt. So having it there for the Reckless ability, I like it a lot. It's a good justification for a 4-drop, and worst case scenario, you can use it as ink. So it never really runs out of steam at any point in time. And that's it. That is it for my Emerald Amber aggro deck profile. Please do let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I will see you later. Bye.